Make it once, wear it everywhere. This skirt was made for shaking. Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. Today's tutorial is flirty, textured, and full of movement. We're making a crochet mini skirt with tiered ruffles worked in the Suzette Stitch for a rich and playful look. The ribbed waistband keeps it comfy and secure, while the layered design gives it that extra bit of drama that's perfect for twirling. If you're new here, welcome! I share modern crochet patterns and tutorials every Wednesday and Sunday, so tell a friend, tap the bell, and subscribe so you never miss an upload. And if you enjoy this video, give it a big thumbs up if you like it, or 2 thumbs down if you don't. Either way, it's a great way to support the channel and help keep these tutorials free. So without further ado, here's how to make your own tiered crochet mini skirt. For this project, any category 4 yarn will work, but I used a total of 465 grams of yarn. That's 1,045 yards if you're stateside. As for tools, a 5 and a 6 millimeter hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a tape measure. There is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order. Stick to the end of the video to hear about this week's pattern giveaway. We're using 4 stitches for this project, and they'll be as follows. Chain, slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, and double crochet. This tutorial is made for a size small. You can adjust it for your size and explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting this skirt started, we're all going to grab our category 4 yarn and make a slip knot. Then we're all going to grab our 5 millimeter hook and start off by making chain the height that we like for the waistband to be. I'd like for mine to be just about 2 inches or 5 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain 10. Now that we have our chain, we're all going to block off that last chain and do a chain 1. That chain 1 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Then from here, into the chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, we're all going to insert with a slip stitch. So into that chain, we're going to insert, yarn over, and gently pull through everything on our hook. That is our first slip stitch. Let's do this again. Into that next chain, we are going to insert our hook, yarn over, and gently pull through everything on our hook. We want to make sure that we're not pulling through too tightly, otherwise the following row will be a little too tight to work into. But from here, just continue with 1 slip stitch into every chain. Now that we've made our way down with our first row, we're now going to do a back loop slip stitch row. So chain 1, that's our turning chain, and flip our work. Into the first chain from our previous row, we're now going to insert into that back loop, or the loop that's furthest away from us, yarn over, and still gently pull through everything. That is our first back loop slip stitch. Once more, into that next stitch's back loop, yarn over, pull through everything, and that's it. From here, we're going to continue with 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. Then, at the end of the row, simply chain 1, flip our work, and repeat with 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch again. We're going to continue to repeat this row, so our back loop slip stitch row, no increases, no decreases, until we now have a portion that can stretch, because it does have a decent amount of stretch to it, around the widest part of our hips. Then I'll meet everyone back right after an even number row, then we can seam it all together. We are back, and I have just completed the width of my waistband. I have a total of 126 rows. Now from here, we're going to seam it up doing an outside loop slip stitch seam. So we're going to insert our hook into the corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. Then we're going to yarn over, pull through everything on our hook, and do a chain 1 just to secure. Then we're going to find that first stitch into the front panel and insert only into that front loop. First stitch into the back panel, insert only into that back loop. When we have these 3 loops on our hook, we're all going to yarn over and pull through everything on our hook. Once more, next stitch into the front panel, insert into that front loop. Next stitch into the back panel, insert only into that back loop. Then yarn over, pull through everything, and continue doing this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. We are back, and we have just completed our seam. Now we're going to single crochet along the edge, so start with a chain 1. Now all we're going to do is put 1 single crochet in through every side row, making our way all the way around. So finding our first side row, this is mine right here. I'm going to find that top loop and insert, starting with 1 single crochet, and I am going to weave this tail in as I go, but it's not necessary. Let's do the next one. This is my next row, which is this raised row. Find that top loop, insert with just 1 single crochet as well. Just to do 1 more set of rows, this is my next side row, which is this divot, insert with 1 single. My next side row is this raised row, find that top loop, and single. Continue with 1 single crochet in through every side row. Once we've made our way all the way around, slip stitch into that chain space. And also we will end up with the same amount of stitches as rows that we made. Now, as a quick tip, this single crochet row will be as wide as this portion can stretch. So once when it's completed, try our piece on. If it's a little too tight, reduce some stitches with a looser grip, or if it's too loose, reduce some stitches with a tighter grip. Then I'll meet you back. We've just made our way around with our single crochets. Now we're going to slip stitch it into that chain space. So this is going to be pretty simple, just finding that chain space when we got started on the single crochet row. So in between the seam and the first single crochet, we're just going to insert in through there with a slip stitch. That slip stitch doesn't count as a stitch, that's just to connect. Then the following row is a half double crochet row. So we're all going to start with a chain 2. And making sure that we're working in the same direction as our previous row, so this will be showing the front of the half double crochets, we're just going to put 1 half double crochet into every stitch. So just finding that first stitch, we're going to insert, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3. That is our first half double crochet. Let's do that once more. Yarn over, into that next stitch, insert, yarn over, pull through. Now that we have these 3 loops on our hook, yarn over and pull through all 3. And continue with 1 half double crochet into every stitch. We've just made our way around with our half double crochet row. Now we're going to close it off together. So closing off the row is going to be pretty simple. All we're going to do is slip stitch into that second chain that we made when we start off this row. So here's that first chain, here's that second. Into that second, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. Remember that that slip stitch shouldn't count as a stitch, so we should still have the same amount of stitches as rows that we made for the waistband. Now, to prep for the layers of our skirt, we're now going to do a bunch of back post double crochets. So we're all going to start with a chain 2. That chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch, and making sure we're still working in the same direction as our previous row. So this will show the front of the double crochets. We're all going to yarn over. Finding that first stitch from our previous row, not that chain 2, we're going to bring our hook underneath our work, up through that next gap, then over the body of that half double crochet and through the other side. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through. That should leave us with 3 loops on our hook. Then from here we're going to double crochet per usual. So yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Let's do that again. Yarn over, bring your hook underneath our work, in through that next gap that we have, over the body of that next half double crochet, pull through, leaving us with 3 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and just to do one more a little bit quicker, yarn over. Underneath our work, up through that next gap, over the body, through that next gap. Pull through to get 3 loops, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Now this row is going to be where our top layer is going to sit, so all we're going to do is continue with 1 back post double crochet into every stitch, then I'll meet you back at the end of the row. So we are back. Our back post double crochet row is completed. Now we're going to do just a few more rows before we do our next back post double crochet row. So we have slip stitched it into that second chain that we made, just like how we did our previous row. Now this is going to be pretty simple. We're starting another double crochet row, but since this row isn't in the back post, we're now going to start with a chain 3 and put 1 double crochet into every stitch, making our way all the way around. Let's do 1 together. We're all going to yarn over into that next stitch, pull through 2, pull through 2, so a normal double crochet, and just continue on with this, making our way all the way around. Once we have made our way all the way around, I will meet you back. So we've just made our way around with our first double crochet row. That wasn't anything fancy, and now we're going to connect it to the beginning of the row. So kind of like how we did our previous row, we're now going to count up the 3 chains that we made when we started off this row. So here's 1, 2, 3. Into that third chain, insert with a slip stitch, remembering that that slip stitch connection doesn't actually count as a stitch. Now, since we don't want the layers to be too close to each other, we're going to be doing another double crochet row. So again, we're going to chain 3 and still working in the same direction as our previous row, 1 double crochet into every stitch. Once we've made our way all the way around, slip stitch into that chain space, then I'll meet you back. Alrighty, so we have just completed our second double crochet row. Now we're going to do another back post double crochet row to give us another layer for our skirt. So that's going to be done exactly the same way as our first one. So we're going to chain 2, flip our work, 1 back double crochet into every stitch. Then right after that back post row, 2 double crochet rows, kind of like how we just did, and just continue on with that until we get as many of these ribbed rows as layers that we want for the skirt. So basically, just continue to repeat our 3 previous rows, no increases, no decreases. Now, as a really quick tip, when it comes to doing these layer rows, this isn't going to be shown within the skirt. Since this portion is just a 3-row repeat, I would suggest to take a look at the following clip just to see where my layers are going to sit and be and just how many rows I actually have done, and then we can move on from there. Now I have the prep for my skirt already completed. Now I have a total of 8 rows, that is including my first single crochet row all the way until where I finished. So each of these ribbing rows is going to be where each of the layer of the skirts are going to be. So here's my first layer, here's my second, and then my last is just going to be the edge of this last row that we have right here. Now what we're going to do from here is actually switch out to our 6mm hook, and then we're going to get started on the bottom layer of our skirt first. Now I've switched out to our 6mm hook. We're now all going to get started by making an odd number chain, the length that we'd like for the total of the skirt to be. So try our piece on, making sure that the waistband is sitting where it's going to sit once when it's completed. So high-waisted, mid-rise, lows, that's completely up to you. Then just make a chain the length of the skirt that you'd like. Now I would like, just from this last row that I have right here, would like an additional 5 inches to my skirt. So I'm going to start by making a chain 21. Now that we have our chain, we're all going to get started on our first Suzette Stitch row. So we're going to start by blocking off that last chain and just do a chain 1. Now into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, we're going to do our first Suzette Stitch, which is just 1 single, 1 double crochet, all into the same stitch. So into that chain that we blocked off, we're going to insert, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. That's our first single crochet. Then into that same chain with a double. So yarn over, into that same chain, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and that is our first Suzette stitch. Let's do another one together. Now after we finish every Suzette stitch, we are going to skip 1 stitch because that double crochet actually counts as that stitch. If we work directly into there, we will accidentally be increasing, and into the next we're going to do a single and a double. So skip that next chain, into the next with 1 single, into that same with 1 double. Let's do this once more. After that Suzette stitch, skip a chain, into the next, and insert with 1 single crochet, into that same chain with a double crochet, and just continue to repeat this until we have 2 chains left. So we have just made our way down with our first Suzette Stitch row. We should all have 2 chains left. Now to close off the row, we're just going to put 1/2 double crochet into that last chain. So yarn over. We're going to skip that second to last chain, and into that last, insert with just 1/2 double crochet. And now our Suzette Stitch row is completed. As a quick tip, since we didn't do any increases or decreases, we should have the same amount of stitches as chains that we made. Now we're going to connect it into the base. The base is going to be the bottom edge of this last row that we had for the prep of our skirt. So just finding that next available stitch, we're going to insert in through there with a slip stitch. So insert, yarn over, and pull through everything on our hook. Now that slip stitch doesn't actually count as a stitch, that's just to connect. Then, to work our way up to the following row, we are going to slip stitch up that following stitch into the base. Now, none of those slip stitches actually count as a stitch. That's just to connect, and we're going to flip our work. Then we're just going to Suzette stitch all the way down. So finding that first stitch, which is the top of the 1/2 double crochet from our previous row, making sure that we're not working into any of those slip stitches into the base, we're going to insert, starting with 1 single crochet, into that same first stitch with a double crochet. Once more, skip 1 stitch, into the next, insert with a single and a double, and continue on with our Suzette stitches until we have 2 stitches left. And just as a really quick tip, each of our Suzette stitches should be worked into our previous row's single crochet. So just to make sure, we're going to skip that following stitch, which is per usual because we just completed a Suzette stitch, and into that next stitch, which is a single crochet. We can tell because it is a little bit shorter. We're going to insert with a single and a double. And like I said, I'll meet you back when we have 2 stitches left. We've made our way down with our row 2. We should all have 2 stitches left. Now just like how we ended our row 1, we're going to 1/2 double crochet into the last stitch. So we're going to skip that second to last and into that last, which as a really quick tip, it could look like we just have 1 stitch left. But if that's the case, just turn your work over and you can very clearly see 2 stitches. So just yarn over and into the last stitch from our previous row, insert with 1/2 double crochet, Again, we should have the same amount of stitches as chains that we made. Then we're going to do our following row. So all that's going to be is chain 1, flip our work, and Suzette stitch all the way down again. So as a refresher, insert into that first stitch with a single and a double, skip a stitch, single and a double, then I'll meet you back at the end of the row when we have 2 stitches left. We're at the end of our row 3, then from here, just like before, we're going to half double crochet into the last stitch from our previous row to complete this row. Now we're going to connect it into the base, which will be done a little bit different than our previous row. Because we want a little bit of a ruffle, what we're going to do is actually connect it into the same stitch that our previous row is worked into. So into that same stitch, insert with a slip stitch. Again, that slip stitch doesn't actually count as a stitch, that's just to connect. Then to work our way up to the following row, we're going to slip stitch up that following stitch into the base. Still doesn't count as a stitch. Flip our work, then make your way down with our row 4, doing our normal Suzette stitches, closing off the row with just 1 half double crochet again. So we are back. We have just completed our first 4 rows. Now before we move on to our row 5, we want to make sure that we're inserting a stitch marker into the outer edge of our 3rd row. Now we're inserting our stitch marker into there because we want to know which row where we connected it into the base into the same stitch as our previous row. So that's going to be kind of where our ruffle point will be. Now the following row is not going to end the same way, so I'm going to talk you guys through that as well. So to get started on our row 5, we're going to chain 1, flip our work, Suzette stitch per usual, all the way down, closing off the row with 1 half double crochet. Then I'll meet you back at the end of our row 5. We are back. We have just worked our way down with our first 5 rows. Now we're going to connect it into the base. Now, like I said, connecting our row 5 will be different than the way that we connected our row 3. So connecting our row 5, we're just going to find that next available stitch into the base, insert with a slip stitch. Then, to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch up that following stitch into the base, flip our work, then work our way back out with our row 6 per usual. Then I'll meet you back at the end of that row. So our first 6 rows are now completed. Now our row 7 will be connected into the base the same way as our row 3. So it will be a ruffle row. So chain 1, flip our work, Suzette stitch all the way down, closing off the row with 1 half double crochet. Then I'll meet you back to connect it just once more. And just as one more really quick tip, since we aren't doing any increases or decreases, we should still have same amount of stitches as chains that we made. We've made our way down with our row 7. Now we're going to connect this row into the base the same way that we did our row 3. So we just completed our last half double crochet. All we're going to do is find that last stitch that our previous row was worked into, so that occupied stitch, insert in through there with a slip stitch, and that is to connect our row 7. We've just completed our first 7 rows. All we're going to do from here is repeat our 4 previous rows, making our way all the way around. Now we want to make sure that we're inserting a stitch marker into the outer edge of our ruffle row just to make it a little bit easier on us, because trying to remember that our ruffle rows are every other odd number row could get a little confusing. So just knowing that we have a ruffle row here, then it should be 1, 2, 3 rows, then another ruffle row here, makes it a whole lot easier to keep track of. But go ahead and get these rows completed, then I'll meet you back so we can seam everything up. Okie dokie, we are back. We have made our way all the way around with the bottom layer of our skirt. Now we're going to seam everything together. So first things first, we're going to flip our work wrong side out, meaning the ribbing that we have for the prep for the skirt is going to be along the inside. Now we're going to do a single crochet seam. So what we're going to do is find that first stitch into the front panel, insert, first stitch into the back panel, insert, and single crochet. And just once more, find that first stitch into the front panel, insert, first stitch into the back panel, insert, and single crochet, and just continue doing this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut. Then we can get started on the other layer. Alright, so now that everything is all seamed up, we're going to get started on our middle layer, and all we're going to do is make sure that the work is flipped right side out so that we see the layers for the prep of our skirt. We're going to insert our hook into that first stitch that we have that's nearest to our seam that we just completed. Then from here we're going to make another odd number chain, the length that we'd like for this layer to be. Now since my first layer, my bottom layer was 5 inches, I would like for this layer to be 4 inches just to show a little bit more of the bottom. So that's going to be a chain 17 for me. But the stitches, the rows, the connection into the rows so that every other odd number ruffle row is exactly the same, making our way all the way around. Once we've made our way all the way around, I'll meet everyone back so then we can get started on our top layer. We have just completed our middle layer of our skirt. Now, I went ahead and already did my seam because this seam is going to be done exactly the same way that we did the first seam, which is our single crochet seam. Then I did a chain up one and cut. Now I'm going to do my top layer, and that's going to be done pretty much the same way as all the other layers. So what we're going to do is just make sure the work is flipped right side out, right side up. Insert our hook into the stitch that we have that's nearest to our seam. Then we're all going to make an odd number chain, the length that we'd like for this top layer to be. I'd like for my top layer to be just about 3 inches or 8 centimeters, so I'm going to make a chain 13. Then again, make our way all the way around with our Suzette Stitch rows, doing our same ruffle rows, making our way all the way around. Once we have, I will meet everyone back. We have just completed the toppest layer of our skirt. Now we're going to seam it up the same exact way that we seamed up the other layers that we had, so just a single crochet seam. Now once we have that all seamed up, the last we're going to do is a drawstring. So what we're going to do is take our same 6mm hook and just make a chain the length that we'd like for the drawstring to be. Now I went ahead and made a chain of 175 chains. That's roughly 42 inches or 108 centimeters. Now from here we're just going to weave it in through the waistband, and I'll show you guys how to do that. So when it comes to weaving in our drawstring, I'm going to place my seam where I would like for it to be. You can either place it within the back or on the side. Mine is going to be on the side, but that's completely up to you. And I'm just going to see vaguely where the front is going to be. Now what I'm going to do from here is I would like for this to be my middle row. So I'm going to insert my hook just a few rows back, inserting it into where I'd like for the drawstring to be. So it can either be in the middle, along the top, or along the bottom. I wanted mine to be within the middle, so I'm just going to find one middle stitch and just weave it in through that same middle stitch until I reach that middle row that I have decided. Then I'm going to go ahead and weave my tail end onto my hook, and I'm going to pull, but I'm not going to pull all the way through because I'd like to leave some slack for the tail end. Now once we have that, we're just going to repeat this all the way around. So once more, from where my chain is, I'm just going to count a few rows back, inserting it into that same leveled stitch, a few rows back, and then weave it through until we reach our chain. Then insert my tail end onto my hook and just pull, and just go ahead and make your way all the way around. So we just made our way weaving in our drawstring all the way around. Now if you guys would like, you guys can pull it in through the inside if you don't want your drawstring to be shown. And that's actually what I did. But once we have this completed, we are all done. Last thing we're going to have to do is simply weave in all of our ends. And there you have it. Hope y'all enjoyed the tutorial. Enter this week's pattern giveaway by telling us if you use a reusable water bottle. We have had a Buzzio for the last 5 or 6 years, and I love it. Details for the giveaway down below. Join us on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. Those links are down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Catch you on the next one. Bye!